So I'm going to go ahead and if anybody has questions before I officially start, that's fine too. I did try to post several links in the description for today. Um, links to the Meetup group, links to, I think there's a YouTube link there. If not, you'll be able to listen to this recording on Facebook and or YouTube afterwards. I also put a link in there for you to go to learn. Oh, Sandy says she can hear me on her phone, but not on her laptop. I never know about the technology. Don't make me fix that. And Lynn says she's here lurking. Thank you. I'm glad you're lurking. Um, at any rate, I put a link into, it says Dr. Kathy Learning Center. What that is I have both an advanced private group for neurotypicals where you can access um, all of the video conferences and teleconferences, but you can also listen to past recordings. And there's no extra fees or anything. If you join that group, there's a fee to join the group, of course, but if you join the group, you can attend as many things as you want to, plus you can chat with each other. So I'd like you to look at that. And that's for neurotypicals only. But then I also have my recorded course that I put together and launched just a few months ago. And it's an extensive, deeper look at neurodiverse, neurotypical interaction, what I call neurodivergent. And the course is for both neurotypical and neurodiverse. So you and your partner can take the course, talk to each other about it. It's recorded, so you can take it at your own pace. And then there's a community associated with the course as well, where you can go in and actually talk to other people who are taking the lessons. So let's see if I have any other messages over here. Okay, good. So let's, don't hate starting early because I don't want to get other people disappointed when they come in later, but I think I'm going to do a little, I'll backtrack and cover some things again. This is a public forum. I want to remind everybody, this is Facebook. This is not our private meetup group, and it's not our private advanced community forum that I was just telling you about. There's a link for that in the little description here on Facebook. It just feels like it's private because it's a little conversation that you're having with me and with each other as you post things on the site. I just want you to remember, though, that if you post something, um, it's recorded. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't ask a question. Go ahead and ask a question. If you want to ask it privately, you can hide your response or your question. Not right now, because I'm going to have to answer it. Or if you want to ask me a question after the live, you can do that. I won't be on Facebook right away, but you can message me, or you could post a question and I will answer it privately through Facebook Messenger, and or you can go through the Meetup group if you're a member and ask me questions. I'm pretty good about getting back to people quickly. In fact, if you're also in our new community forum, um, I'm on there too, and right now it's a small group that's just forming because we just are opening up that community forum next week. So right now I think there's like a half a dozen people there. So, and I love going in and talking with everybody about what's going on in your lives and trying to talk about how do we cross the boundary between neurodiverse and neurotypical. I call that building an interface protocol, an interface protocol between neurodiverse and neurotypical people. Good. Okay. Oh, Melina's here. Good. People are showing up. Good. This is great. I love seeing that. And that's the hard thing for us neurotypicals. I'm on this Facebook Live and I'm just kind of looking at myself and looking at my notes, and I see your names and pictures pop up. So I know you're there, but it's not quite the same, is it, as having a total interactive discussion. Okay. So there's a lot of material to talk about today. I don't mind answering the same question over and over again because there's layers. That's kind of what this negativity stuff is about. Do you often feel, or do you often deal with harsh criticism and contempt in your relationship? Everybody can probably raise their hand. Whether it's both ways or just from your partner, negativity is destroying your neurodivergent relationship. Sometimes having a diagnosis is not enough. You need to understand what it actually means. So, this is the problem. Neurotypicals problem solve differently than neurodiverse people. Okay? What happens is that that diagnosis, a lot of times neurotypicals are so relieved to know that their spouse is on the spectrum, whether they've figured it out themselves, whether your spouse has figured it out, whether you've got a formal diagnosis. Neurotypicals think that's the jumping off place. That's where we begin to talk about what we're going to do. We're going to learn more, we're going to dig in, learn more about this, and begin talking with each other for solutions. The problem for neurodiverse people is the diagnosis is almost meaningless to them. Many times they say it's not true, but often they're interested. And the classic response from neurodiverse people is, yeah, that diagnosis fits me, but diagnosis fits me, but I don't have any problems with it. So that response means that they don't view it as a jumping off place to digging in and understanding us, our communication problems. They just accept that that might be true about them, or they might be a little curious about if there's other people on the autism spectrum that share those qualities, but they don't really see how that diagnosis affects the interaction. So the negativity happens because we're not even on the same page with using the diagnosis to solve problems. So, Cindy says none. He's very gentle spirited, right? So the negativity might be coming from the neurotypical. And I have to tell you, I think more of the negativity is coming from the neurotypical. We are shocked that that loved one doesn't want to work with us. It's really important, and we keep pressing for that kind of stuff. Let's um, let's start talking about the present, the topics that I'm presenting in our meetup group, and these topics will also be available in the new advanced forum. It's really important. There are two different support groups. One is kind of a dip your toe in and get to know the subject. That's Meetup. The advanced forum is where you can attend as many things as you want. You can listen to all the recordings, both video conferences and teleconferences, and you have a forum to talk with each other and me about the topics. So I think that it's, but not everybody's ready for the advanced forum. Not everybody's ready to go, oh, I really want to, dig in this deeply. I'm still nervous about it. Right. Jan says, yes, he says he might be Asperger's, but won't change anything that we talked about over and over. And we'll talk about why that is. Let me go over the subjects first. And then we'll talk about how to bridge the gap here. How do we get this diagnosis going? So the first conference that I'm offering is a teleconference, and teleconferences are for our members. It's $25 a year to be a part of the meetup group. For members, you get to listen to the teleconference. If you're in the advanced group, you can listen to the teleconference and you can listen to the recording later if you miss the teleconference. So there's no loss. If you miss it, you can go back and listen to it again. So the first one is March 15th. The teleconference is March 15th. That's not the first conference of the month. And the title of this one is When a Diagnosis Isn't Enough, which is what we've been talking about. Again, the neurotypical jumps in and says this diagnosis is something we can use. We're gonna step in and start digging in and learning more and working with a therapist and taking classes and whatever so that we can improve our ability to connect. The problem is that, again, that the neurodiverse person they don't problem solve with you. They tend to focus on something specific that they can do, and if they don't have a problem being neurodiverse, then they don't do anything, right? Oh, Nancy, I'm sorry. She says, I'm sorry, but I thought we started at quarter after the hour. We we were supposed to. I just started chatting again. I'm happy to repeat things and answer questions, so don't worry. I just started talking because people were showing up, and I didn't want to not have a chance to ask questions or do what they're what was bring up something that they wanted to talk about. But I'll go back. Um, so try to remember that people on the spectrum are transactional mostly. What they're doing is they're listening to your words and they're trying to come up with an action they can take. Neurotypicals are looking at who the person is that's talking with them, and they're looking for a way to connect with that person first, solution second. We believe in inductive reasoning, which is that you just keep opening up the subject by connecting with the other person. And through this opening up conversation, we believe we will come up with ideas that help us do connecting better. How many of your neurodiverse loved ones say things like, well, why didn't you just say that? Or why didn't you just tell me what you want? So they're looking at it deductively. They're looking at what's the solution to the problem that my partner is presenting. We're looking at how do we dig into this new diagnosis of neurodiversity and solve the problem. Sorry for reaching around like this. I have a cat that keeps jumping up on my desk, and my dog wants to come over and visit too. So what we're talking about here is the diagnosis isn't enough. We also have to get education about how to use that new information to make things better. That's where I'm going to offer the 7-step interface protocol, which I talk about in the course and in my new book. Jill says she loves cats. You'd love this one. She's big and fluffy and very curious. And she's been looking so cute today because we've had snow. So my cat will sit and look out the window and watch the snow coming down, and she's inside where it's warm and cozy. Okay, the second, so the video conferences are different than the teleconference. The teleconference, you just call in and listen, and I usually have anywhere from 50 to 100 people on a teleconference, and you're able to get in the queue and ask questions if you want to, but you don't have to. And again, the recordings are available in the advanced community forums, so you can go back and listen to them again if you're a member. The video conferences are small groupish. Other people, I'm opening up to more and more people, but they are video conferences so that we can face-to-face chat with each other about the subject. It's not just listening to me talk on and on about it. It's about, learning from each other, because the best teachers are people who live this life, right? We're learning from each other. Some people are quiet, some people are louder, some people like, um, strawberry ice cream. Some people would never eat ice cream. There's lots of differences among us, but what's common is what we're talking about, which is a theme of neurodivergence. So the first video conference is on March 7th and 8th. I always repeat it, and I record only one so that we don't have a double recording sitting there. But each conference is totally different. It doesn't matter if we're still talking about criticism and neurodivergent couples. The problem, but I would want to kind of explain this a little bit about criticism. Neurodiverse people feel criticized if we disagree with them, because they're looking to nail something down. They're looking to go toward a transaction, to get a conclusion, to finish up something. We're trying to open it up and make it more bigger to talk about, so we're connecting. Every time we try to open it up and say, well, there's another way to look at that, or I hadn't thought about it that way, I think about it this way, they take that as criticism, which is logical if everything is deductive, which it is not, right? And then if they feel criticized, a lot of times they will criticize back and say, you didn't say that, you didn't do that, that's not true. And we're stuck in a transactional loop. So I don't want you to do that. We can talk more about that too if you have questions. The second video conference is on March 14th and 15th. And the topic is cleaning up contempt. So, what happens when there's a breakdown in communication over and over and over and over again is that we get pretty annoyed with that other person for making our lives miserable, and we become contemptuous of the other person. We start being impatient and treating them badly. And John Gottman up at he's not there anymore, but he developed a number of research programs on successful relationships. And he said, by the time there's contempt with a couple, that the relationship is over. So I don't think that's true. I think that we can slice through the contempt and get to what that underlying distress is about. And I think it's neurodivergence. We've got neurodiverse people who are transactional, and we've got neurotypical people who are interactional. And so neurotypicals are trying to get a conversation going and trying to open things up. Neurotypical people are listening to the words and trying to shut it down and get to a conclusion. Those are very different methods for communicating, so no wonder we rub each other the wrong way. We have to learn to appreciate those differences and slow down. The fourth video conference is on March 21st and 22nd. This is all posted. Don't worry about trying to remember the dates and times. It's posted at our Meetup. It's posted at our Advanced Community Forum. And I believe it's posted on our Facebook page too. So you'll always be able to find it. Please feel free to put your questions in the comment section because I'll answer them the best I can right here on the live as long as we have time. So the fourth conference is, why do autistic people say the strangest things? It's like huge. It really is huge. Why do they say the strangest things? That's how we feel. We just go, where did that come from? Out of the blue. And where that comes from is context blindness, is one simple way to look at it. People on the spectrum do not read all the contextual clues. They don't use empathy, sensitivity to read what to talk about next. So they pick something and they go in with that. Or I had one young woman, for example, she's on the spectrum, and she said, whenever I go to a social event, I think of 5 things that I can talk about while I'm there. So she goes before even meeting these people and already has a list of things she's going to talk about because she doesn't know how to have an interactive conversation. How many of you deal with that? How many of you deal with trying to have a conversation, but instead they pick something out of the context that's not really relevant, and all of a sudden we're talking about Mustang cars, and you were just talking about how heavy the traffic was when you were driving to the meeting or whatever. So they're not tracking, people on the spectrum are not tracking you. They're listening to the words and the data in an attempt to stay on the subject. Neurotypicals are listening to the person in an attempt to stay with the person. Those are different positions. Now, I want to remind you that when for another conference that's really important every month is the one that Julie, our ambassador, does. Julie is our monthly. She does a new member orientation meeting. It's a Zoom call. It's totally free. It's not recorded, but it's totally free for our members to go to and sort of learn their way around this community, because I have a lot of things going on. I have lots of conferences, lots of interactions, and you can get kind of overwhelmed by this. I want you to get help. I want you to learn about things. I want you to forgive yourself for blowing your top, or forgive your loved one for getting defensive. That nobody's explained this stuff to anybody before. So not in any depth anyway. So Julie is terrific. She's been a member of our group for many, many years. She's lived the life of having a neurodiverse partner, a neurodiverse child, and so she really gets what people are going through. And I thought I'd introduce you to another member of the team too, and that's Karen, and she's our community concierge. And she has a similar role with our new advanced forum. She will help you learn your way around how to get in and listen to all of those recorded conferences. We've got recorded conferences going back 9 years. So that's a lot of stuff to listen to if you want to immerse yourself in all the lessons that others have learned over the years. And there's also some local general meetups. There's one in the UK and in New Zealand time zone for people that can't make it always to the North America time zone, the Pacific time zone that I do. So those are all posted on our event calendar. And so you can always find out about it, whether you're in the Meetup group or the Advanced Community Forum. You can always find, just look on the calendar and you'll see what's going on. So there you have it. That's our summary of what we're doing this month in the month of March. And by the way, I just thought I'd throw out here that it depends on what area of the world you're in. It's either March or April that is considered Celebrate Neurodiversity Month or week. Sometimes it's a week somewhere. Sometimes employers will set aside a day to celebrate neurodiversity. And the issue with that celebration, by the way, is, and I'll talk more about that at the next Facebook Live, but the point is to bring awareness to autism spectrum disorder and other neurodiversity, but primarily autism spectrum disorder, because it's really tough to understand for us neurotypicals. We just keep trying to figure out, why they say the darndest things and why they feel criticized and why they keep zeroing in on a conclusion when we just want to talk, when we just want to, have a conversation. So uh, by accepting that people on the spectrum have just a different way of processing information, that's a good start. Doesn't solve the problem because they need to accept neurotypicals too. So I think the concept of celebrating neurodiversity is valuable. It's important. I also think it's important to realize that those neurodiverse people don't live all by themselves in the world. They influence us and interact with neurotypicals and come away from interactions pretty confused, sometimes angry, not just different, right? So I'm not sure if anybody in the call today has had to deal with that kind of negativity, but that's what we're talking about today, is that it's not, of course we get negative because when we're told that we didn't say something or that's not right or, um, why are you doing what you're doing? It's hard not to be defensive. So it looks like we got a couple questions here, or at least some comments. Uh, One, Candace says, I find that I've lost some of my ability to relate to others. I used to be good at that. I've taken on my NTs. I think she means, whoops, where are we here? Keeps NTs anger over politics and get myself into awkward conversations since I'm not good at debate. How do I disagree when it's such a big topic for him? It feels so negative. Candace, do you mean your neurodiverse partner? Just want to make sure I'm getting this straight. But what I'm picking up from this comment is that if we go down the transactional path, the yes, no, right, wrong, if we get hooked into that, if we neurotypicals get hooked into that, we're not going to win. It's always going to end badly, especially if it's a debate over politics. It's going to go wrong. Instead, you can say, thank you for sharing. This isn't going to work for me. Uh, I think that what Candace is saying, that she's lost some of her ability to relate simply because you get worn down in a relationship where they keep trying to pin you to a position. What if you're just talking? What if you're just exploring options? Right? So one of my favorite stories I've told on lots of Facebook lives actually, but one of my favorite stories is having a conversation with my former spouse one day. I don't remember if it was morning or evening or whatever, but it was just the two of us. The kids weren't there. We were just chatting. I thought we were just chatting. I thought we were just having a little silly conversation, just a little over coffee and whatever. And I said something off the top of my head that I'd heard on the radio, and he's neurodiverse. So what he did was he said, "You can't prove that." He was very adamant with me. Whatever I'd said, "You can't prove that." And I stopped for a minute, and I thought to myself, "He's right. I can't prove it." I I I was like stunned, and then I went, "Oh, wait a minute." I took myself out of the transaction since I was wrong. We would have been done, right? You can't prove that, we're done. I said, I don't have to. I don't have to prove it to you. This isn't a courtroom and you're not the judge. And he stopped. So, does that make sense that I took myself out of the transaction? I didn't try to prove that I was right. I just said I don't have to prove I'm right or wrong. So, it's important to stay out of that transactional stuff. Otherwise, it just ends up badly. And the other thing, Candace, is we have to find people to talk with who let us say things, who let us chat, because that reinforces that we really are good with other people. See, Jan, she says, my guy has issues with the words autism spectrum disorder. He can accept neurodiverse, but he has trouble with the DSM-5 label of disorder. Yeah, I think that's an interesting problem. Um, I'm a psychologist, so I don't mind the DSM labels. In fact, PTSD is a DSM label, but PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is considered normal. It's what normal people do with abnormal situation. It's still a diagnosis. It just doesn't mean that you're bad or anything. So the problem with neurodiverse is it's not officially a diagnosis. It's just a way of describing people who aren't in the norm group. Neurodiverse, right? Neurotypical is in the norm group. So when we're talking about autism spectrum disorder, it's a pretty vague diagnosis, I would agree. Um, but it steers you toward here's the scientist in me, it steers you toward a body of research, studies, techniques that work with that population. So it's useful to get a diagnosis, it's just not enough. Um, and it's okay if a person, that's why this month is celebrate neurodiversity. It really, that's a term that people on the spectrum seem to prefer to autism spectrum disorder. And I think that's just fine. I, you know, as long as the person is willing to take a look at how their neurodiversity or how they're organized very differently and think differently and are transactional and miss the contextual cues and all that kind of stuff, you know, it helps. So let's see here. Oops, I'm still looking. There's another question there. Right. Candace again says, I've become a lot more quiet. I'm a good listener, but I'm now uncomfortable with much attention. Um, that's depression. Okay, it's really important that you understand that's kind of low level depression. We start isolating, we pull away. Like when my former spouse said, you can't prove that. It was so startling and so disrespectful that I could have just gone, oh, yeah, and become, an echo, a shadow of myself. The story about Narcissus, right? most people know about Narcissus was a Greek youth that fell in love with himself. He fell in love with a reflection of himself in this pool, this silver pool that had never been touched by the sunlight. And even though others loved him and were trying to get his attention, he wasn't interested in anybody but himself. And most people know that part of the story. They don't know the other part, the wood nymph Echo, who fell in love with Narcissus. And she'd been cursed by the queen of the gods, so that poor thing, she was a very friendly, amiable young wood nymph, forest nymph, and but the queen of the gods got mad at her and said, "Okay, you can be chatty all you want, but all you can do is repeat what anybody says." That's her name, Echo. And so she fell in love with Narcissus, and she was trying desperately to get his attention. So whenever he said anything, she repeated it. And he was talking to himself in the pool of water and trying to, get this man that he saw in the pool to come and be with him. And he kept saying, "Where are you? Can't you come out here? Come and be with me?" And she thought, "Oh, he's asking me to come out," even though she was repeating what he said. He said, "Who's there? Show yourself." So she did. She ran over, put her arms around him, and said, "Oh my gosh, you really want to be with me?" She was so excited. And he pushed her away and said, "I'm not interested in you. What are you doing here?" And she was so humiliated that she ran back into the forest and hid in a cave, shut down, and became nothing but an echo. So it's really important you understand there's two sides to this. If you let yourself be shut down by a transactional person who doesn't mean to harm you, but that's just the way they're wired, then you fail to be who you are in the universe. And we need you. We need you to be out there. And your neurodiverse partner needs you to be true also. Yeah, Melina says, "I would say, it's okay. I'm allowed to have an opinion." Yes, that's again a comment that it's okay if we disagree, but I have an opinion. And that's perfectly reasonable. And that's a really good approach, Melina, because it's fair. People on the spectrum understand fairness as long as they're not a narcissist. They understand giving you room to have an opinion. They just don't consider it at the time that you offer it. They consider what you're saying and whether they agree with what you're saying. They're not listening to the person who's talking. Does that make sense? They're listening to what you're saying and they disagree with that, so they dismiss it. And so when Melina says, "Well, that's okay, basically you don't have to agree with me, but I'm allowed to have an opinion," the person on the spectrum actually can let it go because that the transaction is complete. May not be a very fun conversation, but at least the transaction is complete. I want to make sure I didn't miss somebody. Right. Oh, yeah. I end up taking these conversations into the world. It's like I'm brainwashed. Yeah, that's again part of the depression. The echo shutting down becomes nothing more but just an echo of your former self, right? And brainwashing really is um, disruptive of our sense of self. So if we're into being interactive and supporting the other person, then we can disagree with them and still treat them with respect. People on the spectrum mean to do that, may even want to do that, but they tackle what you're saying first and sometimes make you feel like they're not really considering you. So each time you get discounted or treated harshly, um, you can stop believing in yourself. Now, let me explain the other side for neurodiverse people too. They've had plenty of experiences where people don't accept what they're saying or doing as well. It can be quite unnerving to mean well, to be answering a question, for example, when there really wasn't a question. It sounds like a question, it's just a conversation. So they often have trauma too. In fact, probably usually have psychological trauma as a result of growing up autistic in a world that is not predominantly autistic. If you can imagine living in a world where you don't have easy access to empathically stepping into the other person's reality, and that's tough for you to do, and instead you're just going to talk about the subject, you're going to be dismissed and dissed a lot. So on both sides, failing to recognize this very different way of processing information can lead to trauma. It's just that my experience has been the mental health community, the education community, health and human services has focused on the trauma that people on the autism spectrum experience. They're not really delving into the trauma that neurotypicals experience trying to be in a loving relationship with a neurodiverse person. Oh, Lisa, this is really a good question. It's difficult to step out of the conversation when it revolves around parenting. Both of our children are also on the spectrum. This is tough. Uh, we can get so dang protective of our children, which we should be. And if they're neurodiverse children, we really feel a responsibility to help them learn how to, navigate the social world, how to rise above some of the trauma that kids on the spectrum experience. So I've written a book about this too. It's called Parenting with a Partner with Asperger's syndrome or on the autism spectrum. It's out of mind, out of sight, and you can find it on Amazon. I find it surprising how many people don't know I've written that book, but I really talk about how difficult it is to parent. I parented a child on the spectrum and a neurotypical child, and I was parenting with a neurodiverse spouse. So I was being kind of pulled apart at the seams all the time. And when I would, so the problem is, I really would step in, and many of you do this. We step in and try to stop the uh, transactional approach that the parent on the spectrum uses more often than they should. I remember one time my neurodiverse spouse, I asked him to help our neurodiverse daughter with her math. And she was maybe in fourth grade or fifth grade. And I had been working with her. I was so proud of her. So he's standing over looking down at her while she's working on her math. And he's saying, do this, not that way, whatever. And I went, oh no, this is a disaster. But I waited and I watched her. And she looked up at him and she put her hand up like in the international stop sign and she said, "Stop, Daddy. I just don't understand." And I was so proud that she was taking charge of herself that way. He wasn't teaching her, he wasn't guiding her, he was transactionally telling her what to do. So, does that make sense? It was so what you're talking about parenting, it is it is a tough row to hoe, frankly. Um, but it's not impossible. Again, though, if your neurodiverse partner is willing to work with a therapist and work with you, you know, you might be able to come up with sort of a division of labor, which is that you're probably the neurotypical is going to be paying attention to mm, the helping the child become all that he or she is capable of. Your neurodiverse person might be able to teach a specific skill, like how to play the piano or knock the soccer ball around in the backyard, or maybe even make arrangements for an event. But they're not going to be good at picking up empathically what's going on with the child because they don't read the context. Instead, they stand over the child helping with math by saying, do this, do this, do this. Teachers don't do that either, do they? Um, right. Yeah, Jill says, I can be my full self with other NTs, but not with my ND husband. What a shame. Yeah, it does take more work. You have to keep stepping out of the picture, Jill, and asking, how do I communicate with my neurodiverse spouse? On the other hand, my clients who are neurodiverse and are trying to learn how to do this better, I remind them, slow down, think about it, make some notes, come back to the conversation, because if you slow down, you might be able to make the connection about what's going on with your neurotypical partner. But neurotypicals really love being in a room full of people that can just get you. And you don't have to be an extrovert. It's just looking in a certain direction and they pick up what's going on. Looks like Mary has a tip. She says, my input, get back into hobbies you enjoy or find new ones and meet up with friends who enjoy the same things. I rejoined a running group recently and reached out to friends to schedule dinners. Things keep bouncing around here. Um, or lunches. It doesn't replace what you'd like from your partner, but helps to balance your happiness. What it does is it's chemically really important. We are wired to connect. We neurons fire, all those neurotransmitters are firing off when somebody looks in your direction and smiles at you and remembers that you just love bridge. And when they say, oh, I've started learning bridge, they're so excited and they want to talk with you about it, right? So biochemically, we are wired to need that kind of interaction. And if we don't do it, we're going to fade away into an echo in the back of the forest. Oh, yeah, Cindy, this is an interesting idea. She says, I like no pressure expectation for having to think of anything to talk about. We stay on his topics. Well, yeah, I suppose that works. Um, does he know that you're staying on his topics? Sometimes they don't even realize that you've never expressed anything different than what he or she is talking about. I don't know if she's going to respond to that one, but okay, we've got a few more minutes. If anybody else has a comment, please post it in the comment section. Um, Otherwise, uh, I'll probably start wrapping this up here in a minute. Oh, yes, Cindy says he doesn't realize. Uh, if you're good at staying on the other person's topic, that's sweet. But I really worry about whether you're compromising yourself so much that you're just going to fade away. Um, it's hard. Mary says, so true. I know exactly what to raise as a topic if there's a lull in conversation. The weather, politics, shows he likes. Yeah, Melina says, it flabbergasts him that I have a thought different from his. Years ago, when I was still married to my autistic spouse, we had some friends over, at least they were my friends, and we were playing a board game. We were playing Trivial Pursuit. And honestly, I still remember the question that I answered, and I won the game. And my spouse looked at me in shock because he didn't know the answer. I knew it. And um, he said, you know, you really know some things. He was so surprised. He said, you really know some things. I thought you just talked like you knew things, because he masks. That's masking. People on the spectrum pay attention to um, our behaviors and attempt to enact them, but that doesn't mean they're actually, uh, you know, understanding. But he was totally shocked that I might know something. Now, Nancy, I thought I saw your question, but how far back was that? Can you post it again? I don't see it up here. I'm sorry if I missed it. She wants me to, oh, here it is. Is this one, Nancy says, yes, my attorney husband wants to be right and is transactional. He argues with what I say and challenges me, which he says is a conversation and is his way of opening it up. I get angry because that's not my idea of opening it up. Now what? Well, Nancy, first of all, you need to know that my former husband is a litigator. And so when I told him this isn't a courtroom and you're not the judge, he could relate to that. You might try using that response. But it's hard to know if you're neurodiverse, it's hard to know that those questions that you're asking, that you're grilling your neurotypical, is not opening a conversation. It's drilling down to a solution. So I've done plenty of testifying in court as a matter of fact too, as a professional psychologist. I don't do it so much anymore, but I used to do it a lot. And so I would have to deal with the grilling. The trend litigators are trained in how to ask transactional questions because they have certain points they have to make that are legal, that follow courtroom procedure and all that. I get that. But when I'm being grilled on the witness stand and I'm just tired of saying yes, no, or when they say, you don't remember Dr. Marshak? And I say, no, I don't remember. And then they want to find out why I don't remember, whatever it is. And I finally just turn to the judge and I'll say, Your Honor, I could answer these questions better if I have freedom to speak openly. Would you mind if I speak freely? The judges would always allow that. So speaking freely meant I didn't have to do the transactional thing anymore. Okay, the attorneys would always object, this is hearsay, blah, blah, blah. And the judge says, I'll decide what's hearsay. The problem is you're not in a courtroom. You don't have a judge to help you, but you can use that style. Okay? You can just say, I understand that you want answers to your questions, but those questions will not get us anywhere, and I'm not going to do it. If you want to have a conversation with me, I'm fine. But you've got to hold firm to your boundaries without getting angry. The problem is we blow up, and then they don't know why we're blowing up. The neurodiverse person doesn't know why we're blowing up, and we're blowing up because we're being pinned to the wall over a contextual clue that has nothing to do with anything. Does that make sense to you? So let's see here. Okay, let me go back down here. I hope I didn't miss anybody. And by the way, if I do miss somebody, I usually go back through and answer, look at people's comments and do my best to answer it. Um, oh, this is Rachel. She says, yes, it took years before my spouse finally admitted that he thought I'm not intelligent. That's very sad. I'm laughing because it's just so stupid. But the problem with people who are neurodiverse is they do not have empathy. They might be kind, they might love you, they may care, they may be compassionate, but empathy is the ability to read the other person and have an interaction, have a connection first, topic second. That's empathy. So if they don't have empathy, then they aren't aware quickly that your opinion is based on who you are and all the lessons you've learned in life. Or when dealing with a child, if you don't have empathy, you don't understand that a 6-year-old may be doing it differently than a 10-year-old or than an adult will do it. And so if you just keep going down your transactional path and the other person just finally gives up, you end up not realizing that, or they end up not realizing that we're not connecting, it's not working. I hope that makes sense. This is a big problem. When I get my neurodiverse people to realize that they are not connecting, they feel terrible. They really do. They don't like it that they've let you down. Can they do better? A smidge. At least they can know that they don't know something. That's a big deal. Carol said, I had to leave him for me. I also had to go no contact. I'm happier than I've ever been. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Carol. That's a good thing. It's hard if that transactional person will not stop pushing for a transactional conclusion. You might have to get away to protect your sanity. Cindy says, I think mine got a degree in neuroscience and is a neuroradiologist to figure himself out. Like if you study the brain neurology, you'll understand the other yourself. I don't know. Maybe. But the fact that he did it is also an indication that no matter whether you're neurodiverse or neurotypical, you really are trying to figure this world out. You want to get along, you want to have love in your life, you want to enjoy people. Oh, Jan says that she's having trouble navigating the website. I think you mean the Meetup website, but that's what Julie is for. Um, so, or maybe she's talking about my website. Either way, it doesn't matter. Uh, Send me a message, or if you can join Julie's new member orientation, doesn't matter if you've been a member for a while, she'll walk you through how to use everything. One of the problems is I have with Meetup, for example, or any platform so far that I found it doesn't really fit us neurotypicals, right? I've got to sort of fit our group into, um, think about this, a platform probably designed by software engineers, which maybe a lot of neurodiverse people fit into that category. And so let's see here. Oh, my husband seems to enjoy making me feel dumb. That's kind of true. Um, it's not, what he enjoys is winning the argument. Remember, they're transactional. So we kind of like it when we win an argument too. But neurodiverse people are transactional. They're not factoring in how much this hurts you, but they might see you quivering and giving up as a sign that they've won. And I try to remind them that winning, how does that help? Winning isn't about uh, love, connection, kindness, support, you know. So if you're into winning, okay. Uh, Mary says, I blow up so often and feel so guilty. Is it common for us NTs to have to deal with our outbursts? I feel so guilty. Oh, Mary, don't feel guilty. Everybody here today who's neurotypical has blown up. And I want to remind everybody, not only did I blow up pretty regularly before I understood I was dealing with a neurodiverse spouse and a neurodiverse daughter and a neurodiverse mother, I had no idea. I was falling downstairs. I broke my ankle. I broke my leg. I broke my foot. I broke toes. I broke my wrist. I was so unbalanced. And that's just falling downstairs, not to mention the times that I screamed myself hoarse. So you don't feel guilty. Without understanding what you're living with, this would drive anybody stark raving mad. Oh, that's great, Steve. He says, over the weekend, we celebrated our 48th anniversary. Woo! He says, woo, that's good. See, you can do it. It's just a lot more work than anybody ever has imagined. Uh, oh, okay. Jan says she needs a live person. Then I would go to Julie's uh, video conference because she will answer your question. She's right there. She will talk to you. Or Karen will call you. Either one, you just text them and then we can walk you through it. I'm terrible at helping people walk through these things. It just makes sense to me that it works. Um, oh, Jan, uh, oh, she's asking another good question. I couldn't get into the forum. Here's the problem. The new forum is we're reconfiguring things this week. So because everything's going to start brand new next week, March 6th. So you may be getting into, you know how that is when things are being reprogrammed and some things work and some things don't. It's probably going to settle down by next week and things will work better. Not perfectly, but better. So let's see here. Uh, yeah, I feel this way too. I feel bad for how I've treated him. This is Laura Ann and others because of my anger and depression. I understand more and feel like I'm handling it better usually. Yeah, we have to forgive ourselves. Anybody would go through this kind of distress, not just you. We blow up because we're worn out. I just got worn out. I was not only falling downstairs, but backing my car into utility poles. And I don't do any of that now. None of it. I'm free of that kind of stuff, not because I'm perfect, but because I'm just not going to go into that transactional place. Let's see here. Yeah, winning isn't about love, Nancy. Right. Winning isn't about love. Love is about love. Okay, I am. Oh, uh, people are helping each other. This is cool. I gotta go, but um, I'll go back and go out, try to respond to the comments that I've missed. And like I said, you can click on Messenger through Facebook and send me messages. I will respond. You can send me a message on Meetup. I'll respond. You can go to the Advanced Community Forum and join. It's open now, so you can go do that, and I respond there as well. And you can just send me an email, and I'll I definitely will get back to you. I do my best to get back to everybody. It might take me a day, but I'm never taking very long. Um, and really, it's so important. Look at all these wonderful comments that people are making, talking to each other, giving support to everybody. See, that's what you get in our group. We're a pretty kind together group, even if we're a little off balance and fall downstairs and scream too much. All right. Take care, everybody. Remember, this recording will be here on Facebook. It's also going to be posted to YouTube so you can listen to it there. And I hope to see you in one of our forums as soon as you're able to join up. Take care. Bye bye.